All right, good evening. Okay. Now, I was going to allow President Congo to introduce the meeting.
Hello, thank you, Councilwoman McCoy. Appreciate that. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Thank you for joining us. Today is Thursday. January 22nd. Want to welcome you all to our Committee of the Whole meeting. At this time, I am going to step aside and allow for Council Member Yolanda McCoy to chair the meeting. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thank you, President Congo. I will begin by taking the attendance. And President Congo, I have you as president.
Oh, thank you.
Councilman Owens,
Present.
Councilwoman Darby, Councilwoman Oliver, Councilwoman Harley,
Present.
Councilwoman Willauer,
Present.
Councilman Johnson, Councilman Field, Councilwoman Bracy,
Present.
Councilwoman Cabrera, Councilman Spadola, Councilman Hackett,
Here.
and I myself, Yolanda McCoy, am present. All right. Good evening, Wilmington. So as President Congo just stated, this is the Committee of the Whole. The roll call has been taken. It is a friendly reminder. This is only members of the committee should be making motions and seconding. And we do have an agenda tonight with just 2 items. So tonight's agenda, we will be discussing City Council's 2026 and 2020 through 2029 proposed strategic plan. And who wish to come and speak to this matter?
I am, Madam Chair.
And if you'll introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elijah Simmons, Chief of Staff for Wilmington City Council. Thank you so much for having myself and, go ahead.
Dr. Kendra Brumfield Nwangna, Legislative Research and Policy Director.
Okay.
City Council. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say, Dr. Kendra, thank you for.
Dr. Kendra Brumfield Nwangna, Legislative Research and Policy Director for City Council.
Thank you so much for having us to be here today to present. Going to try to keep it as quick as possible for you all. It's going to be a nice little school lesson for everybody, so strap in and let's get the show on the road. So now that we're in the end of year 1 of this council session, now is the time to approach and really lock down on the 2026 through 2029 council strategic plan. As you all know, we did start a little bit of this process early on last year, but stopped due to some concerns around the steps, the methodologies, and of the surveys, and just different folks having questions around the end goal of the strategic plan and what the purpose of it was going to be and how council was going to be able to utilize it once it's finished and wrapped up. So the overall purpose of us sitting here today is, again, to talk about some of those concerns and address them head on. We are going to have Mayor Baker come in. I'm not sure where he is. He should be coming down soon to be able to offer up some additional guidance for you all as we go throughout this discussion. So the question is, where have we gotten so far this session? So far this session, we started off by sending you all a survey. This was a basic survey where it had 10 broad topic areas covering topics around public safety, health, housing, youth, all a plethora of different topics. And we had you each select your top 5. Out of that, we had selections of public safety and well-being being 1.
Could you please flip to slide 3, please?
Yes. Public safety and well-being being 1. Housing and neighborhood stability being 2. Youth empowerment and education being 3. Civic engagement and transparency being 4. And then the last one, economic opportunity and workforce development being 5. So out of those 5 topic areas, we had 12 responses out of the 13 that conducted it. So out of that consensus, that top 5 were the ones that were selected. Now, the next step after that, our plan was to then go into those top 5 topic areas and then develop subcategories to those of more intricate examples of what each broad category would look like. And with that, the goal of that was to then select your top 3. Then once you get down to your top 3 subcategories, after that, we would then create legislative examples under those subcategory areas. So for example, one of the subcategory areas, I'm not sure of one off the top of my head you could mention.
violence.
One was gun violence. So for example, in the third round of the survey, which would have been legislative examples, there could be something where it was like an ordinance to end all blah, 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 whatever is related to gun violence. And then from there, you guys would have selected specific legislative examples for you guys to all tackle within this session. Then by the end of that, after fulfilling all 5 broad topic areas, you would have ended up having like 30 to 35 legislative examples to then have a goal to be able to tackle in this entire session, making that be your strategic plan where you have a whole goal and a whole initiative of passing 30 to 35 pieces of legislation throughout your time here in this 109th council session. So with that said, we didn't get to fully finish the process as we didn't get all the survey responses that we would have wanted. And there was also, like I said before, there were some questions around the process, if it's going to end up working and things like that. So the purpose of this meeting, again, is for us to come to a consensus on if we want to continue with that survey process to where it comes down to a point where we're able to get different legislative examples together and have those be the target areas of collective legislation that this council passes in this session, or do we want to do something different that Dr. Kendra is going to talk to in a second option shortly. So I'll pass it off to Dr. Kendra. We'll go back to slide 2 as she'll just sort of talk high level about the previous strategic plan and sort of why we decided to go through a different approach this year, this session with this strategic plan.
So in the 108th session, just for the benefit of the public, and I believe we've discussed this, most of us here, but in the 108th session, what happened was we took the strategic plan that was in effect and we kind of did a combination of looking back at the previous goals and looking at the emerging issues. So this was done by survey. A survey was sent out and it basically said, do you find each goal, was it relevant, not relevant? Should it be in a new strategic plan? Then we looked at emerging things like, for example, the disparity report had just been released or was on the brink of being released. Would implementing the disparity report be something you would want to see in a new strategic plan? And then there was space left for council members to give other ideas that may not have been in the previous plan or something that was in the works or in the pipeline. To my recollection, I don't think anything fell under those topics from the previous plan. So council adopted the similar goals to the last plan, but also were able to take some things out that they felt like had been accomplished or weren't really relevant for their session. And so the feedback on that method, the reason we decided to rethink it this time, was that not everybody felt as attached to the previous plan, to things like the disparity report. And although it's great that as a body, those tools were produced for council, everybody didn't feel like those were the things that they wanted to carry on as a baseline. So that's when we went back to the drawing board on what the process should be. And so please bear with us with the presentation. The goal is to more think about the process of how you want to develop a strategic plan, if that's the route you want to go, as opposed to the specific goals of this plan, if that makes sense. Is everybody okay with that?
May I? Yeah, I just wanted to ask you one question. About the disparity report, I do recall when that was actually done, and actually Councilwoman Dixon had requested it. So if you can just make certain that we get an email with the baseline about what it was and what it was for, so that we, with all that data that was collected, we don't waste it if we do need it at some point.
Right.
Okay, Councilman Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. This presentation tonight, is it for us to select the option, or y'all already select the option we're going to move forward with?
Definitely select. Hopefully.
Yes.
That's the goal, to hopefully select, so we have a pathway forward, because now we're in 2026.
But it's only option 1 or 2.
Yes, and then, again, if you have any other additional ideas, let's,
No, I was just trying to
discussion.
figure out who came up with the options.
So this is based on the feedback that we got from you all about how you would like to do it. And I guess to paraphrase very loosely, they're almost like opposites of each other, whether you want to start off with the goals council-driven on the front end, or if on the back end you want to kind of develop them over time. So those are the two options. So yeah, so just a couple baseline things. I may sound like a broken record, but for the council members here and also the benefit of the public, council members are always able to request legislation outside the plan. The strategic plan is not comprehensive, it's a blueprint. That's to say that we can't read the future. We don't know what will be pressing, but I think with all of you, we do know some of the things that are fundamental to you. And we've heard your fundamental concerns like public safety, economic development. And so the strategic plan would just help council keep on track with those fundamental things, that even though you have all these other pressing concerns coming at you, that these still get the attention that they deserve on some level. And so the strategic plan also emphasizes collective policymaking concerns. That's to say, understanding that each of you have different perspectives on certain things is to help you with things that council can do as a body. So that's the point of the strategic plan in and of itself. So for the option one process, it kind of goes back to Elijah, and the survey itself is taking those 5 goals and breaking them down, recognizing that public safety, for example, is a huge topic. And there are lots of different aspects. There's no one magic bullet that's going to solve public safety. So it's looking at things like, is it drug use that council wants to tackle, or harm reduction, or is it the gun violence issue? So what aspects of that policy would you like to address as a body? And so once those are pared down, it would give the research team the opportunity to focus on those. What things are being done across the country when it comes to harm reduction? What things are being done when it comes to community policing? Whatever those topics are that you choose, to focus attention on that and develop initiatives, strategies, things, so legislation, but also if you think about your discretionary funding or things of that nature, or maybe having a outreach, is helping you focus those things on putting attention towards whatever issue you feel like will really move the needle on that aspect of policy. So the research would involve condensed council of the whole sessions or something of that nature, and I'll go back to that later. So maybe that's to say, for example, if you have the top 3 topics, maybe 2 of those would be addressed in a meeting saying, this is the feedback, these are the aspects of the problem the council wants to work on, and give you all an opportunity to discuss in real time how you feel like that problem can be addressed. So over time, that legislation would be revised. Each of you could contribute to what you feel like are actionable initiatives. And then we would, in the year 2, it gives you a chance to revisit, where are we now? What has been accomplished? What legislation has been passed? How are we feeling about this issue? And then be able to firm that up going to the end of the session. Does that make sense? Or are there any questions about that aspect of option 1?
Yeah, Councilman Hackett?
Thank you. I don't really have a question, but I do ask, on our side, I guess, who leads this process? And the only reason why I ask who leads this process, because, I'm going on year 2, and, you would think, as a strategic plan, that would be the first thing that we do as a council coming into office, to be able to find that foundation and be able to grow off of that and move forward, to be able to be on year 2 now and start in the actual having legislation to be able to do the work currently now. So I asked, maybe the survey, maybe what we did early on didn't work, but who takes the initiative to lead this, to make sure that our council as a whole is participating, to make sure that we have all the information needed so that everything is getting done. Because like I said before, I don't feel like we should be on year 2 just now doing, a strategic plan.
Yeah, I'll speak for that question. I do agree. I think that I wish we would have had it, last year, prior to it now being 2026 and it being a 2026 to 2029 strategic plan. I will say, in terms of helping you all get it done, that would be us as staff, but we need your buy-in. So as long as, the reason why we're here again is to get that buy-in for what that process would look like. Because the process that we had laid out, it didn't really feel as though there was full council support buy-in or even majority council support buy-in for that plan. So the purpose of us again being here is to hopefully get that buy-in so that then we can guide and lead you guys to create this plan.
And then I will say kind of the reason it's 2026 historically was the idea that a new session would be coming in. There are a lot of things to do, just administrative things to sort out. So not to force you all into a box of trying to develop an entire strategic plan before you had a chance to really get the lay of the land. So that's why it's a little further into the session. And the goal is for you kind of, when you talk about leading the plan, is strategic plan is about continuity to some extent. So that's to say, even what you do is leading the plan for the next session. It's saying these were the things that we did, these were the things that we felt like were important, and the next council being able to look at those and evaluate and saying, are these things that we still are feel are still fundamental, or are we switching to something else? Should we modify this? Should we keep going? Should we look at some of the task forces and reports? So one of the basic concepts of the strategic plan is kind of like a continuity model and also an all hands on deck. So that's staff and council members coordinating.
Councilwoman Willauer.
Can I let Alex go and then, or Councilman Hackett go and then I can go?
Okay. All right, Councilman Hackett.
The only reason why I say that is because as a new council person, if we were developing a strategic plan, it would be better for us to come into the, better with us, I guess, hitting the floor running. Instead of now we have to go back and maybe the plan that we have for ourselves so far moving forward, we now have to change. And like I said, we're constantly developing and changing, but the 107 had a strategic plan, 108 had a strategic plan, and the 109 is going to have a strategic plan. Might be different, might be the same, like you said, but I think those are important. Planning is important when you have a team that's trying to get some stuff done. Because before we look at it, as I look at this plan, we got a whole much more work to do. We'll be on year 3 talking about let's start, and then next thing you know, we'll be ready to run for office again. So,
Okay. Councilman Willauer.
Thank you, Councilman McCoy. I just, my feedback for how this plan should work is that the survey, I felt like it's difficult to do strategic planning, picking from a set of multiple choice questions that like we didn't have a chance to create. So I would just suggest that whatever we do with the strategic plan, that the first step be asking council members for their ideas of like what the priorities are and then what the policies are that would go under those ideas, and like build it up from there instead of asking us to choose from a set of policy ideas that like maybe nobody on council like wants to do. Like build it, give us a chance to come up with the content, and then like we can work together about how it all goes together.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Councilman Owens.
Yeah, so just following up. So the point of this strategic plan is to have legislation come out of it, correct?
Under this first option, yes. We're going to get to the second option, which is a little bit more intricate and familiar to previous strategic plans, but a little bit different. But this first option, the goal is to have legislation to come out of it.
And more broadly, I would say it's to put concentrated resources towards issues that are important. So that's to say, when you think about your budget ask, when you think about how you look at the town halls you do and things, that there's concentrated attention towards these particular policy issues. So that can be, and you'll see later in the presentation, a suite of things. Legislation obviously is something that's lasting and is definitely something that we would want to come out of this, but it should also go to across the board to other things. There are other mechanisms that you can use to address some of these issues, if that makes sense.
My only concern is that so much time and resources is being put into this plan for it not to be looked at, right? If you look at the strategic plan from 2022 to 2025, and what is said in there that was going to be done and what was actually done are two completely opposite things, right? It talked about with the cable, video, and telecommunications for the city, right? The making sure that we had a strong and successful franchise agreement. We got the short end of the deal with that extension. Looking at new technologies for the city, we really haven't done that. Making sure we have a successful PEG, we haven't done that. I believe there was no youth master plan done last session, right? That's also in there to facilitate and support the process of creating and executing a youth master's plan. Finance and economic development, right? It talks about understanding risk management. We're shelling out so much money in these cases. Like if we are going to do this, if we're going to use our resources to do this, I feel as though the council as a whole needs to have buy-in to this. And if we're sitting here having a meeting to talk about people not filling out a survey, that's not buy-in, right? And I don't think changing the process is going to change any of that. Council members have to get serious about their jobs. And, you know, you have people who have stepped up and did their own things individually, right? Last session, Youth Master's Plan didn't get done. This session, the chair of the committee worked hard to get that done, right? That was solo. That wasn't because of the strategic plan. It wasn't because of that buy-in. If we're going to use resources, let's get that full buy-in.
And that's it's a good point on a number of levels. I will say that there were some things that on the back end. So also, in addition to having just the survey and revising the report, all during the last strategic plan, there was a research team behind this. Every periodically reports were released with a newsletter specifically on one goal. And so it looked at things, and these were ways for the research team, when they're not working on a specific project or something like that, to say, we know these are council's concerns. And so they were able to look at initiatives. So some things didn't necessarily turn into like a youth master plan, but one thing that was done was a resolution to have a youth services directory. And even though it didn't, as you know, there are a lot of other factors involved on how things actually get implemented. But there were some things that were produced related to youth. There were quite a lot of conversations on the Youth Master Plan, and also just getting to the point of having the advisory council. And that helped advise in saying, so every piece of legislation, every contract, every resolution was categorized under that. So that actually does exist. So some things it's like, well, what does this have to do with? And it may not have turned into that actual bullet point, but there were a lot of things done to get the next session closer to that goal, if that makes sense. So it allowed on the back end for the research team to be able to focus on how do we do this? How do we get this done? And if it's not as straight point A to B like we would expect, for them to be able to proactively suggest to council, hey, this is what you can look at. This is what's going on. So it does allow us to focus more on being proactive about keeping a lookout, I guess, or radar on what is going on. How can we move the needle on this? So there is a report with all of the legislation in those categories. And I think some of you have noticed previously with most of the resolutions, it will say, because City Council 2022-2025 strategic plan says, so connecting all of that legislation to the plan.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Actually, Councilwoman Bracy has had her hand up for some time. Councilwoman Bracy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to chime in really quickly. Something that Councilman Owen said that I agree with, and that is buy-in. I think that we have to look at City Council in two ways. One, as the body, of 13 members, but also as 13 individual elected officials who have different priorities and different interests. The 8 district members always are going to have a primary focus on their district, where the at-large, we're always looking at the bigger picture. So I think that there may be a world where we create the strategic priorities, not a whole plan, but here are the top 5 areas of interest: public safety, education, housing, etc. And then each council member may have a different set of planning goals. And then we can try to see where there's commonality. Because I think what's going to happen, to what Councilman Owen said, when the last plan was done, there was no lead. There was no one that said, you know what, I'm going to, this is the CDUB committee. We are going to take the lead on these 3 housing initiatives, or we're going to take the lead. Education committee is going to take the lead on this. So there was a plan, and it was up to individual council members whether or not they actually tied what they were interested in or the work that they were trying to do back to the strategic plan. Everyone on this council doesn't do legislation. So some people like to do events. Some people like to do, and no offense to them, some people only do legislation if it's partnered with the administration. Some people are always looking to do something else. So I think we really have to look at, one, the council as a whole and where there is synergy, where we can work together, but then also looking at what each individual council member may have coming down the pike, or maybe researching and interested in, that can tie back into the greater strategic priority. So it might just be us looking at this a little bit differently, because if you don't have buy-in, it's not a plan for it's not all 13 council members. You're not even getting a majority of them to fill out a survey, spending a lot of time on a plan that's just gonna sit on our website is probably not the best use of staff time. So I think figuring out a way where you're asking council members what they're interested in, what they'd like to see, and then finding the commonalities. That's how we were able to get the youth master plan done, because 2 council members had an expressed interest in doing this. And that was what started the conversation, myself and Councilman Owens. And then we were able to talk to other members of the education committee and move the needle. But it's going to take people having the responsibility of doing their job and being interested in doing whatever it may be. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Before we go into open dialogue, just continue to talk about this topic, if we could just finish the presentation and then
this is what we hear.
I know,
But
but just to go through the advantages, the disadvantages that we have lined up for each option, because we haven't got to the second option yet. Just
we'll let you get
throw it
there.
out there.
And I'm hoping that might answer some of the questions you have because we've definitely been engaging with all of you over this process, and we've heard that feedback. So could you go to the next slide, please? So to the point that was already made on some of these things, so some of the advantages of a survey is just that it's faster. It requires less time, everybody gets to choose, and then it being faster as we go through budget negotiations and hearings, if we kind of know, to Councilwoman Bracey's point, what those collective things are. Not to say everybody agrees on everything, but these are what we collectively want to push. It helps guide that process. It helps you narrow down policy categories because, again, public safety is huge. But saying gun violence is what we're focused on gives you a little bit something easier to grasp. So it narrows down those policy categories. And again, this is not to say someone might not say, well, I think mental health is the one that I'm interested in, and do something independently. The emphasis on these are the collective council goals or concerns to move the needle.
Dr. Kendra, I actually would like to interrupt. I hear what you're stating, and when it comes to the survey, one of the questions I think Councilwoman Willauer brought up was the fact that the multiple choice. Initially, there was something, very simple, public safety, but the examples that were given for public safety were not what I considered for public safety. I'm like, I'm not choosing any of these. These are not what I consider to be public safety. So how do we work around that?
Yeah, so that is something that we did discuss. Part of the reason, again, why we're here is if we're going to look to the survey as that potential option that we're going to choose, myself and Kendra did discuss about giving an opportunity for you guys to add in extra things individually that we could then tie to it. So before putting out that third and final survey or even the second survey, say, hey, look, these are the top 5 categories. These are some subcategories that we're thinking about. Give us one example catered to you and your priorities that you would like added to this that we will then go back to the full body of council and survey them on.
And to your point, that's one of the disadvantages, is because you are doing the survey in a bubble. You're not bouncing ideas off other council members necessarily, and you may not have full context. For example, if you are the chair of public safety and you're talking about youth, that may not be what you focus on. So there may be like a level of knowing, okay, when it comes to youth, why is this topic even important? Why is it on this list? So that is a disadvantage of the survey model, is it's kind of somewhat in a laboratory setting. You miss out on a lot of dialogue at the beginning of the process. It also involves condensed opportunities for public engagement, because I know when we talked about this previously, there was a question about, can we have town halls? How do we make sure that the public is able to give us feedback as well? In the survey model, it would be more of saying, this is the overall goal, and then bringing in that when you are starting to nail down those aspects. So that is kind of a shortfall as compared to some other methods. So just quickly, I'll go through option 2 just to get you thinking about an alternative process, because again, the question is, as has been stated, the buy-in issue is what is the strategy that for the buy-in to be able to come up with a plan. So for the phased plan, this is more of something that's over time, and it would be basically study sessions. I know you like that word, but it would kind of think of it as each topic would be launched. So if we just hypothetically, if you decide to stick with these 5 goals, or you generate 5 goals that are the overall goals, every 2 to 3 months or so, we could say this committee of the whole meeting is dedicated to this particular topic. So you have the public who can come, this is an open meeting to contribute. Each of you are here. It's an opportunity to where everybody can bounce ideas off of each other. And so the structure of those meetings, ideally, would be, first of all, giving everybody the same context on those policy issues. So recognizing that I may be more into this topic, so I may not know what are the key policy discussions going on around these issues.
Kendra,
Madam Chair?
if you can give them like an example, like just like public safety and well-being.
Yeah, so for example,
Now, I just wanted to state, Councilman Owens, did you have something to add to what she just stated? Okay, or can you, okay, all right, Councilman Owens.
So I just want to highlight that I don't want staff to waste their time if we don't have that buy-in from the council members, right? We have a committee of the whole meeting right now, and we only have 7 council members who are engaging, right? There was a resolution to get rid of our monthly committee of the whole meetings and do, I think, quarterly. Yeah. Again, I don't know if trying to add committee of the whole meetings back on to have these discussions, if you're going to get the engagement. And that's what my real concern is. All this sounds good. The format can be good. But until the people who are in the seats are ready to commit to it, it's not going to be able to be planned out. And that, I think, is where the discussion needs to start on what it will take to get everyone tied in and barred into this idea of, okay, we can disagree. Me and Councilwoman Willhauer can disagree on something, right? But here's the points we're going to work together on as a city. Here's the data points that show that, right? And the data doesn't have to come from anything we choose, right? The data should be, we just had a crime report. This is where crime is still high at. This is where it's decreased at. This is where we need more resources at, right? Same thing with youth, same thing with seniors, same thing, on and on and on. So that's kind of like when I do my work, right? That's how I try to get people on board. You can't argue with the data points, right? And until you have that data associated with it, most people aren't going to pay attention to what's going on because they're not going to have that, it's bad right now. Like, okay, maybe we do need to focus in on this. But I'm just being honest with you. I'm not throwing shade at anyone. We just don't have the buy-in from the full council right now.
And circling back to your,
Yeah, Councilman Hackett. Okay, also, I just wanted to say, I'm like, thank you for that information, but I definitely want to let them get a chance to at least present. So, Councilman Hackett.
Just real quick, I just want to piggyback off of Kobe, and he makes a great point about the process. I think these options are good, but until council needs to create the strategic plan. Because from these options, I don't think I gave anything for option 2, the phase plan, or anybody else sitting here. So I think the biggest thing is I think council itself needs to sit down and create the plan, and maybe there'd be a better buy-in there. Council is just hearing options, and they're going to select it, they're going to show up or not. But if they actually create it, maybe there will be, if you invest in something, it's like, y'all parents, you invest in your kid, you're going to be more. So if this is strategic plan is our baby, we have to be the ones to invest in it. And I think if we invest, we'll be more inclined to be a part of it,
So I'll give you a quick example. So for me, from my perspective in the research, is I know that there's a lot of concern with, for example, affordable housing. It's something I hear from, and each of you may have different strategies or different things you're exploring, but I'll tell you, well, there's someone else that's interested in this, and it gives you a chance. So I know that there are some things that you all are not as far as you may think on. It would be, to the point, is making sure that we can put our finger on what are those things, just a few things that are, everybody's interested in this. So with that being said, for example, if you're talking about affordable housing, one thing that is a big topic is what they call whole home repair. And it's something that nationally, it's not just this council, many councils are interested in affordable housing, and they're saying, well, give people enough money to repair the entire home or whatever the situation may be. If that was something that council said, okay, now that we understand this, we understand why this is a big topic, what are these key things that other places are considering, and able to choose those, now you have a full research team that's dedicated to looking at what are the strategies, what's the legislation, what initiatives have they done around this topic. So again, it goes to being able to pinpoint what are those common things. But that being said, assuming that there were some common things that were identified, the phased plan would be having a session on, say, for example, if it is affordable housing. There would be kind of, you could say, a launch of that. This is the affordable housing section. We deal with some of those key issues, give definitions, explain why are these the things that are being talked about all over, and not just for you all, but also for the benefit of the public, because you want them to have at least a baseline knowledge to be able to engage in these conversations and also give their feedback. So it will also include a summary of things that have been done to date as a body of council. So that's whether it's your session or the session before. One thing about these strategic plans is that we've kept research from many years past, and we can go back to that and say, is this still relevant, or use it as a starting point for going a new direction. So that's to say is whatever reports, maybe they weren't in your session, but say, hey, we did a report on this, like youth gun violence, there's a report on that. So being able to show what is council as a body's action to date, and then the conversation would be open at that meeting. Now that you know what's the national conversation, now you know what this council has done, now council members and the public can start at that one page saying, this is what we can do going forward. This is what I think would be important. And again, that's not just legislation. It could be budget related. It could be maybe writing an open letter to Congress or to the state legislature, but saying this is something that we want to get a position on and have a clear process towards. So from that point, in the phase plan, we would have this launch session, some ideas and initiatives kind of brought to the fore, and we would take the time to really dive into those initiatives over time, understanding what can we develop, what processes should we do. And then in year 2 is seeing where are we. To Councilmember Owen's point, is looking at it in that year 2 and saying, have we gotten this legislation? Have we gotten a youth master plan? And where should we go from here? Maybe we don't need it, or maybe we should push harder towards this. So kind of seeing where we are, taking stock, and then preparing to really wrap up and develop these things before the end of this session. So for example, if you all have something on that strategic plan that's developed, but you feel like it's not getting enough attention, to be able to look at that in year 2 and revisit and say, hey, let's push harder on this issue. So that's what the phased plan would consist of. Next slide, please. Some advantages of the phased plan are it allows the council, the research team, and the public to give that focused attention to key municipal concerns at a specific period of time. It's saying, I know how difficult it is when you're getting all types of requests from constituents, but to say, in this month, we will focus on this, at least we'll discuss it and make sure it gets the attention it deserves. The phase plan is more interactive throughout the process. It involves, again, if it's of a committee of the whole, it could be whatever structure you decide as a council, but that's saying that they're open meetings. People can contribute. It's not just us by email. And so you get those new ideas and you also get the public support from stakeholders. It gives the opportunities for the public to also buy into these things and sometimes understand why, for example, when we're talking about a particular policy, why it couldn't be as simple as just this piece of legislation. They see those things develop, because I know you all see it on the back end, but that doesn't always come across to the public. Why didn't we just do a youth plan, or why didn't we just have this? So it gives it an advantage of the phase plan is it's over time. It gives time for engagement. The disadvantage is time. It requires more time to develop a consensus. The things that come out of those launch meetings or study sessions might just be kind of like formative ideas. And so to your point, we still have to keep going back to those and saying, well, what about this or what about that? Do you feel like until we get a finished product? So it does take more time. This is something that probably wouldn't factor into this fiscal year's budget because we haven't discussed it yet. And preliminary legislative actions, for example, if someone says, I think we should declare a gun violence crisis in the city, that might change by year 2. And it might be, well, maybe we should do it this way or that way, or maybe we should just do this in terms of pressing higher levels of government instead of just doing this internally. So the phase plan would evolve. That's the goal. And it may take time to add policy context. To the point, it would be more sessions of some sort to level set and make sure everybody understands this terminology, everybody's on the same page about why, certain things are being suggested, and making sure that the key policy issues are covered. So those are just, and again, those options are just based on the feedback that we've heard from you all. And the buy-in question is, how do you get people to come along? How do people feel invested in this process.
Okay, yeah, I was just about to ask something. I'm sorry. Chief of Staff Simmons. go
One
ahead.
more comment for you all. Just want to say shout out to Kendra. You are a rock star. All the work that you've done on this and even the last strategic plan, you're amazing. Just want to say thank you so much for all the work that you've done throughout this process. With that said, I appreciate the dialogue that's already taken place just around, do we even want to continue doing this plan? Part of my opening remarks that I actually missed out on was actually emphasizing that, like, hey, if we come out of this meeting and the majority's like, we don't want to do this. We don't want to waste staff's time. We don't know if we have the full buy-in to be able to get it done. So with that said,
Wait, Mr. Simmons, all right, so you're closing. I actually had something to address
Oh,
with Dr. Kendra. That's why I was
okay,
asking the
okay,
question.
okay.
And then you ready to wrap it up. So, all right, so we actually had a little bit of a back and forth before the cameras came on. So I had actually stated that, it was more about ownership, which is something that has been stated by my colleagues. So why don't we break up the strategic plan by committee so that the committee chairs can have more ownership over what they would like to see in those topics, those subject areas. That way they can try to find consensus with their committee. Okay. They could try to find consensus within their committee. That way someone always has eyes on it to try to push something forward. And that way, if anything falters, it'll be, as a group we weren't able to find consensus, or maybe the leader wasn't able to get on top of it. Anything that does not fall within the realm of our committees, because we have 6, 7, whatever, there are, we can actually talk to our president to find out whether or not that would then be the meeting that maybe I guess that he would be able to run. So I'm sorry. I did see Councilwoman Willauer had her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to say that I think that's a great idea. I think the committees are a great, we're already divided up around the different topics. And I would just suggest, and I think the idea of having the chairs, lead up is a great idea too. I would just like to add on to that idea that the vice chairs maybe could be included as kind of co-leaders with the chairs, just because I know a lot of the newer members, we're all vice chairs, and we're also seem to be enthusiastic about the strategic planning process because we're here tonight. So that was my only comment.
Okay. All right, Councilman Hackett.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback. I think it's a great idea to use the committee. At the end of the day, we select what committees we want to basically move forward legislation to help the community. The strategic plan should be based upon kind of like the committees, which are our key priorities of what we're going to find legislation and different things to come from. So I think that's like a great starting point, if I'm being honest. The only thing I would say is when we look at the strategic plan, like I said, I think we was supposed to do like a retreat too. Like, I think as a whole, we should just, come together at one point in time and just, flush everything out too. Like, just to, be on a sync. Like, especially like all sessions should have this. When you come into a corporation, usually y'all got a retreat just to kind of figure out, like, what does this plan look like for our business, for our community, for our city, like, so that we can all be on one accord, because the council can have great wins coming out of a strategic plan as well. Even though it's coming out of committee, it could be stuff that we look at as a whole, like the educational Office of Educational Advocacy. Like, that was kind of like a big whole project that we pushed as a whole, and it came from, and that's why we push it heavily. And I think we can have more wins like that for our community. So.
And if I could comment on that.
Okay.
I think the committee plan, it would reduce the committee of the whole sessions. I will say that. It might make it more manageable in terms of time. We could just do a presentation on some of those key things at a committee meeting if the chairs are fine with that. So it could, reduce some of the time involved or like commitments to coming to other meetings. I would also say, just from the perspective of research, don't feel on the staff side, it's not, it sounds counterintuitive, but when we are choosing fellows, one thing we look at is what are council's concerns that are coming up? Because I'll say shout out to the University of Delaware and also Delaware State. We get great students, and sometimes the only thing that decides between this student and that student, what is council doing in the next few months. And so for us to have upfront to know what that is, everything is set by those priorities. So it really helps them direct resources. We've had fellows that I'm really proud to say have started a lot of their career things here. And when they're in classes, they do op-eds. Sometimes they take the things they're doing here and they turn them into assignments that they really leave white papers for council members, because I was really interested in this. So having that structure for them helps them to really direct that energy they have to make change towards giving you guys the research that you need to do those deep dives.
And, actually, I wanted to make certain that Mayor Baker got a chance because he raised his hand a few times. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone, please.
No, I think the process that you're going through is all right, but I think
Well, sir, if you wouldn't mind, if you're going to stand, you can go to the podium. We want to make sure we hear you.
I think the process that you're beginning is all right. I think your questions, though, about how to council really grab a hold of, I don't like a plan. I like priority. This is what our priorities are. Because if you try to plan all this, you'll get bogged down in all kinds of chaos, I think. But if you say, what is your priority? Like I keep saying to council, if you don't work on raising money, it doesn't matter because you won't be able to function anyway. Mm-hmm. And I think your projections are that in 4 years, you're going to be at 10 million deficit. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you pay for that? You can't raise your property taxes and raise it because you only get a few million out of your property tax. The state doesn't allow you to raise the wage tax and does not allow you to create new taxes. You can create fees, but you can't create new taxes. I think the General Assembly members should be very much involved with you guys in terms of how you prioritize. Because if you don't get money, in your business, if you have money, you can do a lot of things. If you don't have money, it's just like talking to the wind and expecting to change. But I think your idea of the committees, taking on the issues and trying to narrow it in, but I think you still ought to fight for priorities, because that way you don't have to have 20, 30 issues. Yeah. You can have 3 or 4. And this is what we're going to do. And then you can work on it. Actually say, are we working on housing, lower cost housing? You know, and are we really going to get somewhere with this? You've done some good things, actually, you may not know, but you haven't told the public that you did some good things. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Communications with the public. We used to have the NPCs, Neighborhood Association conferences down at the riverfront. People would come in, we'd have a nice breakfast, we'd go all the way to lunch, but we let the people know and hear from them directly, and have the administration there, because you got departments too that you got to worry about how are they going to face up to what you're trying to do. So it's necessary what's going on. I just think I would abandon the idea of planning. I can do that for years and not have anything done.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Councilman Hackett?
Yeah, my also biggest thing is, we come here, even some young council members, and, your question was, you wanted to have a decision made tonight, and I think when we talk about buy-in, we talk about, shouldn't the buy-in be from the people that's showing up? That's there. I think sometimes I'm tired that we have to come back and we got to wait and be like, oh, we got to get everybody. Well, if everybody is not serious and they don't want to buy into the situation or the strategic plan, but some want the strategic plan to happen, I don't want to drop the ball on this, because I feel like some of that was the issue early on too. We waiting on people to have answers and different things when some people was ready to go. And I think that's one thing we have to look at as a council and as also staff or chief of staff. If you got 7 or 8, whatever amount of members that want to push it, allow us to push it then, because I don't know why we're waiting this long to do certain different things, and some people are passionate. That, like you said, the youth mastery plan, two got together and put the ball rolling. Now we're moving forward. So, sometimes people got to see the ball moving and jump on the train. You know what I mean? So that's just my take tonight, for real. We said what we said about committees. Sound like a great idea. Everybody agreed on it. Chairwoman McCoy had a great idea. What are we waiting for, folks? Is what I see. Is what I'm saying. No, seriously.
I'm sorry, any of the other colleagues have anything to say? Because Dr. Kendra has something to add.
I agree.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Bracy.
Thank you. I just wanted, before I said anything, did Dr. Kendra finish her PowerPoint? Are we done with the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Or is there?
Good to go.
We're all done.
Okay.
We're all done.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I actually agree. So that was one of the things that I was going to say, is what Mayor Baker said, is that we adopt strategic priorities. I like the idea of having each committee kind of be structured around the priority that fits their committee. So if it's public safety, housing, education, youth and family, like all health and all seniors, what we're already supposed to be doing in those committees, but having an intentional focus on whatever that strategic priority is. That also alleviates the cost for a whole 30-page plan, when we can just have some very clear, succinct statements about each of the priorities. So I like that idea. And then having the council members in the committees, and to Councilman Hackett's point, council members that don't come to the committee, they just aren't a part of the conversation. They can watch the replay on YouTube. And then if they want to get read in, of course, as the chairs, we can make sure that they're read into what we're doing, so we're not excluding them. But this also, for buy-in purposes, those that are interested will show up. Those that aren't interested won't. But it takes a little bit of that off of the staff to try to build this whole big multi-page plan, but also, put some onus on us as the council members to do our jobs. So I like that idea.
Thank you.
A question for the council. As we are collecting these priorities, would you prefer us to do them individually with you and cover all the committees that you're on, or do it in like a committee, like a public safety committee, where it's on the agenda that says discuss strategic priorities, and then you all just kind of talk to what your priorities are?
Okay. Did you want to
Madam Chair?
Oh, are you following up?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I can wait. I can wait for Hackett.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna say, are we moving towards committee members? You got the chairs and the vice chairs, meet with them, set it straight. Waste no time.
Okay. So, Councilman Bracy, was it similar to what Councilman Hackett's stating?
Yes and no. I was going to say, Councilman Hackett made a good point about doing a strategic planning retreat. So I think we use the next committee of the whole as it's got to be a public, facing meeting. We have, a strategic planning retreat where we all agree on the strategic priorities. Or if we want to just use our committees, then we're done. Like, if we're just going to use what our committees are structured as, then that's our priorities.
Okay. All right. Did you? Okay. All right.
Yeah, so just
let
to
me finish
put it
up,
out there,
Chief.
it would be 7 priorities based on the committees. We would meet with the chair and the vice chair. Oh, you want to give a comment?
Yes, Councilwoman Wallari.
The committees might have more than one priority. So it'd be 7 committees,
Yeah.
would each develop their set of priorities.
Yes,
least
yes,
3.
at least 3.
No, correct. So you don't have 7 priorities, you might have more, but
Yes,
coming from committees is what
yes.
And also to add, I don't know if everyone is aware, but the committees do have mission statements too. So that is another opportunity to say, this is what we're about. Those are supposed to be revised with every session to make sure that they're relevant. But I just wanted to kind of restate what was said in a more direct way, because in the interest of time, and certain council members are more involved in some subjects than others. But like you said, you're a body. So education might not be my topic, but I want to see it get done. And I know that that's the case with a lot of you as council members, is that not everything's your topic, but you do want to see it get done in principle. So that committee structure or whatever structure you want to use, again, the strategic plan is the opportunity to see those things that you are concerned about get done, even if you're not at every meeting, driving that conversation, just knowing that it's something that's being focused on. So I just wanted to, reinforce that is to your point, not everybody, oh, bless you, will be at every committee meeting, but it's things that you can agree on in principle that you want to get done, I think.
Okay, Councilman Hackett.
My last thing is, if I agree totally, but if they want to be a part of that process, they have to show up and buy in. That's what all we're saying here today. We're saying that it has to go on. This process didn't go on because we was waiting for buy-in. And we're just saying today, no, the process goes on.
Exactly.
Regardless if you buy in or not. There's some that want to buy in, there's some that believe, and, we'll lead the way.
So
But if not,
creating the space
then,
for it.
And then also,
So wait a minute, I actually have something to say to that. I do understand what you're stating, and you don't want to stall out. At the same time, it seems though they're trying to do everything by consensus. So this is the reason why we need to have ownership of, that's why I stated to break it up by committee. It is up to the council persons who are actually helping and leading these committees to make certain others know what we believe are the priorities. We should be sharing that information. We should make certain that our colleagues know what we feel is important. And they may say, I don't even think that that's a priority right now. You should be worried about something else.
Right.
That's where we probably would need the retreat or something like that, because I've come up with 3 priorities, and if enough people say that shouldn't be the priority right now, we need to think of something else, then that's where I need the consensus. Gotcha. I'm sorry. Now,
yeah, so I think it would, in that scenario, we would obviously ask you all, hey, so you're in CDUP, Community Development and Urban Planning. What are your top 3 priorities? And then we pull together all 3 of those priorities from each of the members in CDUP, put them all in a pile together, and then we talk about them in an open committee of the whole meeting or in an actual CDUP meeting, put it on the thing, so.
Okay.
That's what we're moving
Yeah,
for.
so have I corrected I've saved the day with all, we gonna get rid of all these committee of the whole. Y'all welcome.
Committee of the whole serve the purpose for you all to collectively meet, discuss, and
And we
talk topics.
appreciate them, but not so frequently.
Yes.
All right. So were we done with this? And should I be introducing the next agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Yes. So I didn't know whether or not we had anyone else on the Zoom, but we can open it up for public comment if anyone has any questions about what we've just discussed when it comes to the 2026-2029 proposed strategic plan.
all right, should be able to get
No, okay, all right. So there's no one has anything to say about that. We're going to move to the next agenda. The next item agenda. It is agenda item. Discuss adding council's travel information to council's website for public viewing and transparency. Okay, now who's going to speak about this?
Councilmember McCoy, this was going to be presented by Councilwoman Darby. However, she's absent, so this is going to be saved for the next quarterly committee of the whole meeting.
Okay,
Can you do that once you read it?
all right. So,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
oh, y'all jumped ahead of the gun. All right. So,
Aye.
all right. I said, and anyone opposed?
Hey, how you pose? We got
All right, I said that we are going to end this meeting. I thank you all for participating. For those who are able to show up, it looks like we're going to start moving forward. Y'all have a great evening, Wilmington.
Councilwoman McCoy.